All right, so let's come back over here. I just want to talk about this last article here. And it says that the housing market needs a difficult correction, according to the Fed. And in Utah, it's already happening. So after announcing another 0.75% hike to its benchmark interest rate on Wednesday, Jerome Powell said the U.S. housing market will likely go through a difficult correction before achieving better balance. So what does that mean? Well, we're already seeing it. Home price increases in some regions more than others are leveling off, if not starting to dip. We've already seen prices dipping. It's kind of interesting that they're reporting this saying, oh yeah, it's starting to happen, because it's actually been happening for about 3 to 4 months now, depending on what data you look at. So that's something that's already happening. And I think it's going to continue to happen. We've already seen prices come down about 5 to 7%, depending on what market you're looking at and what price range. But I do think there's at least another 5 to 10% to go here in Salt Lake. And depending on how long these high interest rates stick around will kind of determine how much those prices, how long it takes for those prices to come down and how far they do come down, in the long run. So I think that if interest rates stay where they're at right now, we've easily got, 8 to 10% on prices, for prices to come down. If they go higher, it could easily be 10 to 15%. Or if these high interest rates remain, let's say through the entire year of 2023, or even at least into the second half of 2023, I definitely think we're going to see 10 to 15% drop in housing prices. For the longer term, what we need is supply and demand to get better aligned so that housing prices go up at a reasonable level and a reasonable pace, and that people can afford houses again. We probably in the housing market have to go through a correction to get back to that place. The interesting thing about this, I've been thinking about it a lot, right? People always say, okay, it's supply and demand, and here in Utah we have such a lack of housing overall, and that's been a big driver why prices have gone up so much. Now, I think if you actually look at this and you said, okay, what if we just dropped if this was possible, right? What if we just dropped 10,000 houses into the market and just said, hey, they're here. If you want to buy one or you want to rent one, come and get it. Here's kind of a reasonable rate for it. Here's a reasonable price. I wonder what would actually happen to the market. And I think if there was an oversupply of houses, I think prices would actually come down substantially. But I still think you'd probably get people complaining that prices are too expensive or there's nothing out there, or, they're going to say, hey, I'm not going to pay $400,000 for that home or $600,000 for that home. I think they still get those people out there. And, I don't know that prices will ever come down to a level where it's just considered affordable for everybody. Now, that's not to say that I don't think there's should be affordable housing options for everybody out there. I just don't know how likely it is to get to that point where it's just hey, everybody can afford a home and it's only going to take 10% of your income to do so. I don't know if that's ever going to be realistic, just because of the way that the market works. So what does a housing correction mean for the West? Powell's language on Wednesday gave more insight into what Powell meant in June when he said the housing market needed a reset. There's been some speculation about whether that has meant the Fed's goal was to temper buyer demand to give a boost of inventory, or if the Fed actually wants home prices to decline. Fortune reported Thursday, but in the minds of some housing analysts, Powell's language this week strengthens the interpretation that the Fed's intent is to bring home prices down. Now the U.S. is reckoning with an affordability crisis that it can't avoid. Enough would-be home buyers have hit their limit and have pulled back rapidly over the last several months that it's had a dramatic impact on demand. Home prices in Utah and Idaho, the impact has been swift and dramatic, especially in the West. Local housing markets, including Boise and Salt Lake City, were among the cities to see the home prices skyrocket amid the pandemic, and are now also some of the first to see prices dip as the frenzy fizzles. From May to August, Boise's metro area home values fell by 5.26 and Salt Lake City's fell by over 7%. This is kind of surprising. I actually thought Boise would fall at a higher pace than that. Now, there's a bunch of other information here that you can read on about this if you want. You can go ahead and pause this video, actually, if you wanted to read this information. There's just some numbers here. What we're seeing in the market is it's pretty crazy out there, guys. I'll just be totally honest with you. There is a lot happening. There's a lot of people who are looking at homes. There's a lot of people who want to buy homes, but honestly, it's just expensive. If you're looking at getting a mortgage right now, you're going to be heavily affected by those high interest rates, and that's going to reduce your purchasing power. I was even looking at numbers for a $500,000 home the other day, and the payment was over $3,000 for this home with a pretty reasonable down payment. So that's something that I think is pricing a lot of people out. There's also a lot of people who want to sell and they're having a hard time finding buyers, because of that same exact reason. There's a lot of people who own homes that are sitting on the market and are unable to sell because a lot of buyers have just dropped out. Now, I think that actually as home prices continue to come down, I think that there's going to be people who continue to jump into the market and pick and purchase those homes. And so I do think that will kind of insulate the market from dropping even more substantially, as long as the number of sales doesn't go down. Right now, it's September 30th. I was looking at stats for the month of for the month of September. Let me just pull them up here while we're on video. Might as well. So the month of September is pretty much done. So we should have pretty accurate information here on what's happening. And I want to do this. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen one more time. If you're interested in this information, I know a lot of people love this. Let me go ahead and share screen. All right, so let me jump over here. So this is September of 2022. So in September of this year, we saw 3,098 sales. If we look back, compare this to last year where we had 4,517 sales. And if we go back to September of 2020, we actually had 5,392 sales. So sales were like almost double just 2 years ago in the month of September. September is usually a pretty busy month, but it declined last year because of low inventory, and it's declined even further here in 2022 because of those rising interest rates. Now, the interesting thing here, if we look at these two columns, this first column is going to be the original listing price for a median priced home in the market, and this is going to be the median sales price. So for any of the homes that closed here in the month of September, we saw a median sales price of $495,000, which you can see is down from the all-time high of $540,000 that we saw back in May. Also, this is a percentage of what homes were selling for compared to their original listing price. So we've been over 100% since, let me just open this up and go back to 2019 to show this to you, because right now we're actually sitting at okay, so here we go. So this column right here, this percentage number, 95% is the median sales price to the original listing price. So homes sold for $495,000, although they were listed at $520,000. So every home's going to be a little bit different, but on a median basis, homes sold for 5% less than they were listed for. This goes against the trend that we saw for the last 2.5 years. We have to go back to May of 2020 to see that we were even under 100%. And still we're at 99% there. If we go back even further, you can see we're at 98, 97, 98, 99, 97 here. So it is pretty typical to see that homes sell for a little bit less than they're listed for, right? I think that's kind of what everybody's been used to prior to the pandemic, right? If you go out there and homes, if they're asking $500,000 for a home, then you're not gonna offer 500. You're gonna offer 480 or 490, right? Whatever you can get off of the price is what you're shooting for. So we're kind of returning to those levels, which I think is actually important. I think it's healthy, although it kind of hurts and the number of sales are down. I think it's actually something that is vital to a healthy market here at this time. If we come over here, this last column here is days on market. So the average or the median days on market was 31 days, which is quite high. You can see that this has been increasing over the last couple months. We really have to go back again to like the end of 2019 to see these same numbers here. Now, the thing about this is that's totally normal. It's totally normal to see days on market in that 20 to 30 days range. It's just that the last 2 years have been absolutely crazy, and that's been a big driver of why that's happening. So with all that being said, guys, this kind of wraps up the video. I want to hear what your thoughts are on this. If you've got a question real quick, go ahead and drop it in the box below. I'd love to hear from you. One comment, you joined late, but what are you seeing on rent price trends in Salt Lake City? Yeah, that's a great question. Rental prices here in Salt Lake have been increasing. I've seen rents go up substantially over the last 12 months. I actually had a couple of tenants of my own where I reached out to them. This was just recently. I reached out to 2 different tenants and said, hey, do you want to renew? We got to push rents up a little bit, but it's going to be a lot less than what else is on the market. And both of them said, no, we made other plans. We're moving out. And we went ahead and re-rented those units for about 12 to 15% higher than I thought I'd be able to rent them for. So prices have definitely gone up. Here in Utah, it's a seasonal thing. If you're looking for a rental between like May and September, it's going to be kind of the hot season. That's when everybody wants to move. That's when a lot of leases come up for renewal. So that's when you're going to have the most to pick from. But as we go into kind of the end of the year here, we're going to see that there's going to be less rentals on the market. As far as prices, I don't know. I think prices could continue to stay flat or maybe even go up. when it comes to rent. Rent prices, if you actually look at it historically, very rarely go down. And if they do, it's only by a couple percentage points before they continue climbing, right? When's the last time you ever got a notice that, hey, your rent is going down next year? It just doesn't happen. Even if you're paying $1,400 for a place and you want to move to get an equivalent place, you're probably going to pay at least $1,400. You might get lucky and find something for like, let's say $1,350, but it's pretty rare to see rent prices actually go down over the long term. So again, thanks so much guys for watching. Really appreciate all your support here on the channel. Thank you so much. We're going to catch you in the next one.